now. So thank you, Nakia, for joining us and leading this presentation, and thank you to everybody for being here.
Awesome. All right, so yeah, it's a little bit of a small crowd, but that's all right. I think everyone on here knows who I am, but my name is Nakia, and I'm going to be talking about our ocean in COVID-19 in Mozambique. So I'm the PI in Mozambique, and yeah, I'm just going to kind of go through what we're up to on this side of the world. So I'm the founder of an organization called Marine Action Research, MAR, at the Zavra Marine Lab. And yeah, so I'm kind of leading the research projects in Zavra, which is a very rural, remote fishing village. And yeah, so my background, I have an MSc from Dalhousie University. I moved to Mozambique essentially the day that I defended my master's thesis, and I founded MAR. So essentially I took over the Zavra Marine Lab, which started in 2010. So I took over all of the projects, and then I started my own organization, which I've kind of been expanding on these projects and starting new things. And more recently, I've joined the Marine Megafauna Foundation. So MMF has been working in Mozambique for almost 20 years. And pioneered a lot of the manta ray and whale shark research that's going on here. And have also expanded to more of like a global research group. So I'm kind of also part of a bigger picture now. MAR is obviously a very small entity. So I think it's been a really good thing for me to join with MMF and start working on the bigger picture, especially even in Mozambique, like along this coastline as well. So what I'm doing, I'm working with a variety of different species. So I'm really interested in looking at like ecosystem approaches or like multi-species trends. And I won't go into too much detail about all the projects, but I'm looking at everything from nudibranch diversity, distribution, and how climatic events affect nudibranch communities, to the manta rays, which are more of my passion. But yeah, so looking at how manta ray sightings have changed over time here, and kind of what the causes of that could be, fishing pressure, industrial fishing, etc. The main goal for me is to highlight critical areas, so areas where a lot of these threatened or important species are hanging out, or breeding grounds, nursery areas, etc., and trying to find a way to implement some sort of protection in those areas, which is also why working with MMF has really opened up a lot of doors, because they have a lot more reach with government and stuff here. So yeah, and then overall, yeah, I'm just trying to get an idea, like personally here in Zavra, how Zavra Bay is functioning as an ecosystem, and how these communities are varying over time and space, sightings trends and stuff. So yeah, and I think with the eOceans project, it's I've always had this interest in how humans affect or how they are using the ocean. So the eOceans project is a really good way for me to tie this human use aspect into what I'm doing here. In my MSc back in 2016, and when I finished, I was looking at how nutrient pollution, so the way humans are putting nutrients into the estuaries and stuff, and how that affects seagrass ecosystems. So I've definitely always had this interest in how humans are impacting our oceans. So that's a little bit about me. So why am I interested in doing this work with eOceans? So Mozambique has a massive coastline. It's like 2,700 kilometers long. So it's a huge stretch of coastline, and most of it is extremely remote. Ronnie has been here before, and I think she can attest for the fact that it's small and it's not easy to access, and that's like a lot of places along the coastline. So it makes it really difficult for researchers and anyone that's trying to collect any sort of data to cover these larger areas. So I'm in Zavra, which, like I said, is a very small remote place, and I'm getting a really good grasp on Zavra, but there's thousands of coastline left that are untouched. So I think this project is a really cool way to add citizen scientists and other researchers to join in on this and kind of get an idea of what's happening along the whole coastline of Mozambique. Yeah.
Thanks, Nakia. I'm Christine. I'm the founder of eOceans, and Ronnie is also here. She's with us in Halifax. We're a Canadian East Coast Atlantic Ocean Research Organization. I've been doing this work, crowdsourcing data, since 2004. And so our role is not only developing the software to help make this project happen, out of a need for myself and for others that I've worked with over the years to speed up ocean science and to make it more collaborative and transparent and real time. So, I was crowdsourcing data and it would come into a black box and I would just put it into a scientific publication, and it would always, it didn't go back to the community, and it was kind of these one-off projects, siloed one-off projects. So we're building the software to make that, to do all that. But at the same time, we're also leading this international project, Our Ocean and COVID-19, and using the app to do that. So in the next slide. So the goal, the mission of eOceans is that we hope to make oceans be radically more exciting and valuable by making faster and more collaborative discoveries. And next slide. And we do this by, if you think of every time you go to the ocean, either you're going as a scientist or you're going as a tourist, every observation you make is different. And the oceans are highly variable, highly dynamic, and through space and time. So every observation we make is a tiny little piece of that puzzle. And so the idea with the app is that you're logging, it's an activity tracker, and you log your observations. And then we stitch those together to better understand what's happening at the local, regional, national, and global scales. Next slide. So that's what we're here for today, is to talk about the Our Ocean and COVID-19 project. And I'll send it back to Nakia.
Yeah, so as I was saying, Mozambique has a massive coastline. So as you can see here in this map, it's very large, and I mean it's one of the most diverse and productive ecosystems on the planet. And Zavra is a tiny little village where I've marked there with the arrow. So I think, yeah, with I can focus on this local level, but even expanding within Mozambique is super important to get this, real-time idea of what's happening along our coastline. So my idea, is to hopefully get people on board in all areas of the coastline, so that we have this bigger picture from the south all the way to the north, which varies drastically in itself. So yeah, that's my goal for Mozambique, is to kind of get this really important, crucial data throughout the region. So during COVID-19, I know a lot of countries were, had specific rules and laws or regulations. So with Mozambique, it was a little bit, I would say, unorganized, as Mozambique is, but most of the coastline was, people were banned from going on the beach, for walking on the beach, for launching their boats. So there was loopholes in that, and I was kind of able to find one with being located so remotely and being a scientist doing research. So I was able to still get out for most of this time during the lockdown, which was amazing. And we were the only people. I mean, we're usually the only people in the water in Zavra anyway, but in terms of diving. But everywhere else on the coastline was banned from launching their boats, diving, and most of them, I think, still are either not diving, not launching, or very, very limited due to having no tourists. So I think it had, a huge impact on the tourism industry, but also for recording, these sightings and observations in the different areas. So here I was able to obviously collect some data from Zavra, and what I did notice is that it was a very good humpback whale season, so that's positive. However, I am part of a couple larger cetacean groups from the region, so people that are studying, whales and dolphins within the Western Indian Ocean. And it seems as though there seems to be a lot of whale and dolphin strandings that have been happening so far this year. I was called about a couple that were in my region, which was like a 3-hour drive away. I wasn't able to make it, unfortunately, but it just seems like there's been an increase in these strandings. And this is, why I think the eOceans app and having, this community in the area that can put these observations into the eOceans database rather than, we'll talk about it later, but the Facebook group even, so that, we can record this information and have some sort of, recording of it. So I definitely have noticed that during COVID-19. Also, as I said, most people in terms of tourism and dive centers and any sort of ocean activities were banned during this period. So no one was really allowed to be on the beaches except the local fishermen. They had some sort of leeway to go fishing for their livelihoods. But this did not stop them from, using massive amount of gill nets, especially in Zavra. Obviously, this is where I am, and I see kind of on the daily what's happening here. And so even just in this period, we've had some incidences with the gill nets. The turtle here in this photo was taken a couple months ago, and turtles in Mozambique are one of the protected species here. So we were able to report this to the police and to the maritime departments, but there's really no enforcement and nothing really happening in terms of regulating these gill nets and other types of destructive fishing methods. So that's kind of the lowdown of what's happened in the last little bit during COVID-19. Again, Zavra is remote in itself, and I'm the only research station here. There's only one dive center here, so I don't think there's going to be much of a difference here in Zavra, but I think maybe in the more touristy areas, which I think will be important to get these people on board using the eOceans app. So this is just an example of what eOceans has been able to capture over the years of all the eOceans data that they have in the database. So our ocean in COVID-19, I think there is 16 countries on board for this project. So the idea is to get, like daily observations from all of these different countries, and hopefully more people will be added on in the future so we can get an even bigger picture. But the idea is to kind of have this these hotspots and these areas on a daily basis in real time of what's happening in our oceans, with both, species observations, but how humans are using the ocean as well, such as, these spear fishermen or gill fishers or surfers or whatever it may be. All right, so I'm just going to play a little video here. Hopefully it works.
Economy is valued at $1.5 trillion per year, providing essential products and services to 1 billion people. Many threats, like plastic pollution, ship collisions, and overfishing, have significant costs. On the other hand, there is ample opportunity to celebrate. Billions have been spent on conservation. Species have come back from the brink of extinction. Fisheries have improved. Tourism has value. Protected areas have grown. Although marine researchers work hard to track these changes, a lack of data means their discoveries often lag years behind ocean change. eOceans can help. Our platform was designed by Dr. Christine Ward-Page, an expert in crowdsourcing ocean data. Our mobile app allows all ocean explorers to become scientists by simply logging what they see. Our analytical tools provide researchers with real-time insights to monitor oceans by species, areas, and issues. Through our community feature, explorers follow how their data are being used to answer complex questions. eOceans is on a mission to help communities and researchers make real-time discoveries to celebrate success, or to mitigate and adapt to change on timescales that keep pace with business, society, and ocean change. Contact eOceans to get a team started in your community today. For the oceans, for us.
All right. Okay, I'm back. I think this is over to Ronnie.
Yeah, no, nice job managing that YouTube to presentation. Worked great. And thank you so much for giving us your insight of what's happening in Zavra. It's so important and so enlightening for us when we're here, when Christine and I and the rest of the team are here in Atlantic Canada, and we really don't know what the regional perspective is. So yeah, as Nakia has mentioned, and as the video kind of explained, we have an app that is associated with this project, and that is really our call to action today for you. Is we're asking for you to download the app, track your activities and log your observations, share what you are seeing, and then follow as the project unfolds. And what we really want you to think of this app as is your personal activity tracker, your digital log in your pocket to track how you're using the ocean, what you're seeing. Divers have logs that they often keep, and we kind of want this to be maybe an additional diver's log or just a beachgoer's log. And then as you're recording these observations, you are also seamlessly sharing to science. So next slide. So when you download the app and you go to make your first observation, this is what you will see. These logs that are in this example slide are hopefully what you will get to with, maybe you'll make 1,200 observations, which would be excellent. But first, to make your very first log, you're going to have to make the decision of either a single observation or an auto track or transect observation. So single observations are great if you are on the beach with some friends or playing or volleyball or sandcastles or whatever, and it just hits you in the moment that you really want to contribute to eOceans data, and you pull out your phone and you take a single observation of what you're seeing. Or the auto track function is great if you know you're going to be doing a continual activity either along the coast or on the water. So maybe a boat ride out to a dive site, or a beach walk from the beginning to the end, especially if you're doing cleanups. This is where you just run that auto track, and it'll track your time, your efforts that you are doing that activity and what you see along the way. And this part is great to track the zeros, what you don't see, but it also puts it in context to how long you were out there for, which is very important for data. Next slide. So after you've chosen what type of observation you'd like to take, you're going to be going through the pages from left to right on your phone screen. And the first thing you're going to do is take a picture of your scene. This is just for context. You do not need to take a picture of every shark or human you are observing, just the scene. And you don't need to get close to wildlife or people. It's just really a snapshot of where you are. And this, as you take a photo, it will also record your location with latitude and longitude, as well as your date and time, which really ensures the real-time aspect of your data collection, that you are seeing what you are seeing directly in that moment and in that location. And next, you'll choose your activity. That'll really determine what you are looking at, and it changes the context. So your activity would be walking the beach, surfing, diving, what have you. After, you are going to select the wildlife you see, the species that you see. We have a list of 500,000 species, so hopefully what you're looking at is on there, as well as there are common names. But if you are looking at something and you don't know the species, that's fine too. There is an option for that. And then you count how many of what you're seeing, and you record the number in the count section with the plus and the minus button. Now, if you're not seeing any wildlife, this is equally as important and still valuable to take a log. So in that case, what you would do is hit the skip button, and it would just move you over to the equally important observation of humans. So the human observations are what you are seeing other humans doing on the beach. So if you see 10 surfers or 2 other dive boats, that's where you would record this, as well as pollution. So human generated pollution like noise pollution or plastic pollution. Something we've been seeing a lot of is the disposable masks and gloves from COVID, and that is where you would report that as well. Our human list is not exhaustive because we're learning from our on the ground team who is actually collecting the data of what different human pollutions and activities they might notice. So if you do ever see something that's not on our list, please let us know and we will add it. And just the same as the wildlife, if you do not see any humans to observe or pollution, that is still valuable data. If you're looking at a clean, beautiful beach, that is excellent. We'd want you to record that too. So next slide. So this is where you can add notes to your observations. So this adds even more context to your log. Perhaps you recorded a turtle and perhaps you recorded some fishing gear or ghost gear, but what was really happening was an entanglement. And this is where you get a chance to describe that. And you use hashtags. You use hashtag turtle entanglement or whale entanglement, whatever it may be, just to tell us how those two wildlife and human observations are interacting with each other. This is where you also verify what you just wrote down to make sure it looks good. And then after that, you save and you've created your first log for eOceans. Next slide. Yeah. So what you'll also see is a community channel. This is coming soon. It should be released very shortly, but this is where you'll be able to follow teams that are trying to answer other research questions. You'll see our team for the Our Ocean and COVID-19 project, and you will see a regional team from Mozambique that Nakia will receive your data from. And this function is really what we hope for you to continue using the eOceans app with, is to follow along to see what's happening in your region, what other people are observing. Next slide. You also have a dashboard that accompanies your mobile app, and this is, you access this on your web application, so your browser on your desktop. And this is where you can see your previous entries and you can edit them. This is also a feature we're looking to add, is where you can retroactively add photos. So if you were diving and you wanted to add the photos from your underwater camera to the observation that you made while you were on the surface, you could do that, as well as maybe add some photos with your wonderful SLR camera. You can do that as well too. You're also going to be able to see the global effort of eOceans data collection. So with the app, you'll really only get a regional snapshot, but with the dashboard, you can go and explore and see how other areas are collecting data or what the data collection looks like there. And a feature we will be offering is, if you are a researcher who would like to download your own data to analyze separately and answer questions of your own, this is an upgrade we will be offering to download your own data. All right, next. And a really key important part about the eOceans platform is that your data is yours, you own it. So the only people who see what you are logging is yourself and the teams you choose to share it with. So that really protects your location, and perhaps you saw some endangered or threatened species. You don't want everybody to know where that was. You want to protect those areas, especially even special areas as well too. So that's for security purposes and something we've taken into great consideration. As I mentioned, you will be seeing a team for your region, but right now, all data that you collect directly goes to eOceans for the Our Ocean and COVID-19 project. And then eventually other teams will join on the platform answering research questions of their own. And as an individual, you get to choose which teams you want to join, which teams you align the most with and align the most with their cause. You would be able to manually join them, and then your data will filter to them when you're in their research area and when you see the specifics of what they are trying to record. Okay, go ahead. I think this is you, Nakia.
Yeah. All right. So just some FAQs, if you are wondering. So a lot of people have asked if the app works offline, and it does. So for people like me, where the internet goes in and out and isn't always reliable, I can still use the app even though I'm offline, and then it'll sync when I come online again. So I think that's an awesome feature. And like Ronnie had kind of said, you don't have to take a photo of everything that you're seeing. It's just kind of to get a snapshot of where you are and kind of the scene of where you are. So for example, I'm doing humpback whale surveys from the dune. It's almost impossible for me to get a photo of the whale breaching or whatever. So I'll just take a photo of the actual ocean where the whale kind of was, and then I'll upload it to the app. Yeah, and so again, as a scientist and as someone, doing research, as few or hundreds or however many observations, everything is important, even those zeros. If you're walking on the beach, just have maybe your transect going, and if you don't see anything, you don't see anything, but I think that information is extremely important. And that's also what I love about this app, is like it's recording presence and absence, as well as your survey effort, which a lot of these other apps and observational platforms don't really take into account. So yeah, but I think, yeah, I know the people on here now aren't in Mozambique at the time, but hopefully Oakley, you'll be visiting soon. I think that might be Russ that's on here, I'm not sure. But yeah, hopefully you'll be able to come visit in Mozambique soon. We have a few ocean partners that have joined in our region. So you can see them here. So even if you're not in Mozambique, but Oakley, you're in France, you can kind of spread the word where you are. I'm not sure if there is a PI for France yet. Not yet, so maybe you can be on the lookout. Yeah, so
Netherlands and Belgium. We have Netherlands and Belgium, so
okay,
makes sense to go.
Yeah, maybe Oakley, you could be the PI in France. Yeah, so just spreading the word and kind of getting as many people and kind of ocean organizations involved with this project will really help us to understand the bigger picture of what's going on globally. As I said, I'm in southern Mozambique, so at the moment I've kind of focused on this area in the south, but I really need to start reaching out to the north. As I said, it's a completely different area up there, but I think we need to kind of, yeah, try and get as many people on board as possible. So yeah, I think one way of spreading the word is through the media. Social media is a great way to get people involved. And if you haven't joined it, I highly recommend joining the Our Ocean and COVID-19 group on Facebook. And that, I mean, it's just a way for everyone to kind of be involved and see what's going on in your region and around the world. So even if you're not on the app, or if you're not on the coast and you do see something or you heard something from your area, you can post that information into the group so that Christine, Ronnie, and all of us can kind of see what's happening in that area. So for example, I went on a dive, I think it was in June, and it was we saw our first ever minke whale in this area. So at the time I didn't have, or the app wasn't working on my phone. So I posted that information into the Facebook group so that, the information is out there at least, and it's kind of recorded in a general spot. Yeah, and then obviously you can follow all the other platforms, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, use these hashtags. You can also, I think everyone on here follows Mar, but yeah, if you have any questions, you can always contact me or Christine or Ronnie, who I think will put our emails here. But if you have any questions, you can also ask now. Oakley, Russ.
Thanks so much.
Pleasure.
I'm wondering if I could like send this or any information to my friends in Puerto Rico too, because yeah, I know a guy there who specifically works with the bioluminescent bay, and he's really awesome and does a lot of like ocean projects and stuff. So yeah. Okay, just send us.
I don't know if, do you have a PI in Puerto Rico or not yet?
No.
Okay, yeah. So I'm sorry, one of you guys can probably take over the question.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Yeah, we're looking, I identified when I first started this, I identified 270 regions of the world that we could potentially work in. So we're at 30, I think we're close to 30 now. So there's lots of opportunity to grow. I see each one as being its own individual project, and then the PIs together stitch them up into a global project. So yeah, please share. And if you know anyone in France, if it's not you, if you know anyone in France, that'd be great. I did have a couple comments. I have one comment, just I think when Ronnie's explaining it, she's explaining it more from the citizen science point of view. And I was glad that Nakia brought in the science, because you can think of the singles as a stationary point count from a scientific or a technical point of view. You're taking a stationary point counts through time and space. And so if you really want those to be valuable, you could set an alarm, for example, to get a random sample or a standard sample through time. So if it goes off every 30 minutes or if it goes off every hour, you just, hey, how many people, how has it changed through time? Imagine how you can change, if you did it all day, you would get everything through the day. And then the auto track, you could run transects. So whether you're doing a transect for whales or a transect for garbage or a transect along the beach, like Nakia does, it's kind of a transect, a stationary transect really, where she's logging through the same space with the spotter through time, right? So we're still trying to figure out how to store that data when you don't move. Anyway, yeah, and then I did have a question. Why do you think, so this increase in strandings, what could be causing that? And then how are we, if there's fewer people and there's bans from going to the ocean, who's reporting that data? How are we getting that knowledge of increased strandings?
Yeah, I think, I mean, maybe it's not increased strandings. Maybe I'm just more informed now, but it seems like the consensus is, yeah, there's been quite a few this year. I don't really know. I don't have an answer of why. I think because it's been quite a few different species, humpback whales to spinner dolphins to, and I think there's people working on the ground like that have collected samples to kind of figure out what the cause was. But I mean, like I said, luckily now, I mean, I don't know, things might change, but luckily now people can go to the beach. And as I said, I'm trying to kind of spread the word so that these kinds of things can be at least maybe put in the Facebook group or on the app, obviously would be awesome. But yeah, so at the moment, you know, I'm just part of a couple groups, like WhatsApp groups of cetacean scientists that, you know, can talk, and that's kind of how we're communicating when there is a stranding along the coastline. But yeah, it definitely seems like an odd year. And more.
Are they finding them, or is it being reported to them and then they're communicating?
I think it's kind of a mix. So usually, like, I mean, I heard of one a few days ago, and the person that told me said, you know, there was someone in the area that had seen it wash up, but then the local people cut it into 1 million pieces and it was gone in, you know, less than an hour. So I think it depends on the region and where you are. And unfortunately, yeah, the local people here do consume anything that they find. So it is a matter of who gets to it first. And being so remote, like I'm trying to, like I said, the one call that I was asked to go to was a 3-hour drive away. And then my car broke down, so I couldn't go. But yeah, so it makes it really difficult, and hence why it would be so awesome to have, you know, people in all of these small little areas that can at least inform us.
In Australia, they've documented like a 4,000% increase or whatever it is of citizen science reporting. So because people are more, whether they're for whatever reason, they're more inclined to be reporting, for example, for whatever reason, that there's just more people reporting. So then you're getting more reports. And
exactly.
So it could be that. There was an article this morning about climate change impacting shark incidents in Australia.
Oh, I think I saw someone posted that, yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, and that's where I think, you know, getting this effort of how many people are observing and seeing or not seeing, that's the activity tracker, then you can actually get at some of the confounding variables around these, like, you know, is it just an increase in effort and sightings, or is it an increase in stranding? So yeah, it's interesting. But this is the first one that's come up as the first webinar that we've had where strandings has become sort of like possibly a thread. Interesting. I mean, sad, but interesting. Thanks.
Hi, Nakia and Christine and Ronnie. This is Russ. I have a couple of questions and ideas. They seem to generally fall into two categories. The first would be to do with the app and the data collection itself. So, Ronnie, you touched on sort of retrospective collection of data through the desktop interface. You know, obviously, there've got to be millions and millions of pictures and videos out there retrospectively that, you know, the average diver like myself would have stored back going decades. Is it your intention to make available the ability for people like myself to be able to go in and, as I say, retrospectively, you know, obviously on the image you would have metadata that would capture the date. It may or may not have GPS coordinates, but you know, one could presumably, using an interactive a map type of a feature on the desktop application, one could indicate the general area of the sighting. You know, so that would be the first question pertaining to still images. Then, you know, I think the next logical question comes, what about videos? So I think I'll just stop there for the moment. And I do still have some other questions and suggestions.
Great. So right now the focus, we're a very small team and self-funded by me. So we're building, really, the initial build is really focused on the real time. And so the historical data, although it's asked for often, scientifically, I have a hard time understanding how to use it. So it's not something, it is on the roadmap, but it's not in the immediate roadmap, where right now we want to be able to get real-time data. So if somebody reports a whale, let's say Nakia reports a whale and somebody else further offshore reports a really loud noise, then we can put those things together, stitching those interactive pieces together in that real-time picture together. Is our immediate focus, and then building algorithms, because, for example, everyone has different skill sets in what they're good at and not good at reporting. So for example, I'm pretty good at many sharks. I'm great at corals, soft corals and sponges in the Caribbean, but as soon as I go elsewhere, I'm an expert in those areas and those species. So we're trying to build also algorithms to be able to QA, QC data in real time. So that's something else we're doing. So that's really been the focus, is on real time. And then later on, I can envision building a data lake to look at historical baseline information, but it's not in the immediate in the immediate roadmap in the next 6 months, let's say. And video is a great idea. Digesting video takes quite a while to get the AI to be able to do something with it, unless you're reporting it. So I'm unsure how it fits in just yet, but I'm open for suggestions on how it can be easily. So the idea here is to get as much real-time information and then to build from there. So where video fits in, maybe it fits in through the dashboard, so you upload it. There's a lot of new technologies now that are GPS, that are aiming to be GPS based. So your GoPro or whatever it is would just automatically gather the data as you go. That, again, it's really that, it's really focused on species and not the anthropogenic or the social or human use values. And so we're trying to make that be much more complete in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thanks, Christine.